All right, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome a very special guest onto the podcast, one who has been a family friend of mine for well over 20 years. He's the father of one of my best friends, but he's also one of the smartest medical minds I've ever personally met. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Elie Daniel. Doctor, how are we doing today?
Hey, Chance, how are you?
Man, other than some of my technical difficulties and you having to deal with it, but I think we found a way. We're going to make this work. But we've got to get into it. We obviously are a sports podcast, but so much of sports, and we talk about it all the time on our podcast, is how the medical field plays into it. We just talked last night about a football player who had his lung punctured by a doctor giving an injection with obviously a needle, missed the rib, punctured his lung. He's out for a couple weeks. So obviously medicine and sports go hand in hand. But let's get into it. Could you give us a little bit of background on your medical expertise, how long you've been doing it, and what you specifically are a master craftsman at?
Well, I've been out of school since 1987, so I've been doing this for a while, almost 30
couple years.
33 years or so. So it's been a while. But anyway, the more you do things, the more humble you get, because then you learn that hey, you have a creator in front of you that knows more.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you more humble. So, but anyway, yeah, we do all kinds of things. We do from geriatric to pediatric, which means elderly to kids to sports to injuries to the simple things like the mundane stuff, like infections and so on and so forth, and to like severe problems. And we've done all kinds of things in between, like things like club feet or residual, problems with the feet that are, born, babies born with problems. We deal with a lot of those things. So
Mm-hmm.
we deal with everything.
That's so mainly feet and ankle. Is there anything outside of that you work into?
Well, we usually that's my specialty is foot and ankle. So anything related to the foot and ankle, we deal with it. So
Okay.
we usually any soft tissue element that goes into it, we deal with it. The beauty about the foot and ankle is that it is our base, which
Mm-hmm.
means it is where the body reacts to the ground. This is where you're interacting with what we walk on, and it makes you mobile. It makes you able to be from point A to point B, and that makes us different than a tree, right?
Right,
So
absolutely.
it makes us able to go around and be all over this world and enjoy it.
And speaking of going all over this world, you are quite the globetrotter. Make sure you check out. We'll talk about Doctor's YouTube page here in a little bit, but if you go in and check that out, you've been trotting all over the place. What are some of the places that the medical field has taken you?
Well, I've had the privilege of working all over the place, and some of the places are Saudi Arabia, UAE, Lebanon, Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain. I've been also up in the northwest area of Asia, like parts of the old Russia,
Mm-hmm.
like Georgia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan area. Those areas as well. And I'm always invited to go somewhere else, but I don't have time.
Exactly. So you're quite the globetrotter. With all of those places that you've been, do you have a particular place that you would call your favorite place you've traveled to?
We talked about this some time ago, I think, but my favorite place is when I have good company. So it
Definitely.
doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have some beautiful company with you, you're okay.
That's all that matters. That's all. Now, I got to ask a question, and this is where my silly brain kicks in. I was watching a video on the internet the other day. Have you ever been to Turkmenistan?
I've heard of it. I've never been in it. We've had patients, believe it or not, come to wherever I go, I try to create a clinic
Mm-hmm.
that deals with foot and ankle, because foot and ankle injuries are not really very well known all over the world. So like in Jordan, we created a foot and ankle clinic in Amman, Jordan. We also created one, and not me. I mean, I help
people.
a group of doctors to help to do that. And in Georgia, we've also in Tbilisi, Georgia, which is not Georgia here, but Georgia,
Georgia, the country. Yep.
Right? Exactly. We've created in Tbilisi a big, huge clinic, and it still is very, very active right now. And believe it or not, we get people all the way from Siberia, from Moscow, from Turkmenistan. We go from everywhere that come and visit with us. We have people from all over. So I mean, there are places that I never even heard of, and all your time you see them there, and it's very, very unique experience when you start to deal with places like that, when they're very remote. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the medicine and the medical experts that they need. So it ends up being a situation whereby I'm trying to help them as much as I can.
For sure. And the reason I asked is because I was watching a video that someone was talking about traveling to Turkmenistan, and they were basically saying that like Turkmenistan very limits the amount of people, the amount of foreign people that come into the country. Do you ever run into that situation where you want to go to a country and maybe there's some restrictions or anything along those lines where it makes it tough for you to get into that kind of place?
Sure. Well, I mean, you have to think, okay, well, we still have politics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So politics play a lot of roles in a lot of things. And the funny part about that is we all have feet.
Yeah.
We all have the same blood. But nevertheless, politics comes in and says, oh, no, we're different, and we're not.
For sure, and those people still need help as well.
We are all the same in the eyes of God, and we are all the same made, and thank God for that.
For sure.
Because, or else medicine doesn't even work. So we have to be like that.
Definitely. So obviously everything that you have seen over the years, and we talked earlier about, how sports is so intertwined with medicine. What are some of the most common sports injuries? Because I'll give you my guess to it. It's got to be sprained and rolled ankles, right?
Right. Well, basically, you have to think about the anatomy a little bit. When you talk about sports medicine, you have to really know your anatomy. Mm-hmm. And anatomy okay, I'm going to kind of go out a little bit on a tangent just to explain what anatomy is.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say I call you and I say, you know what, Chance, where do you live? And you tell me, I live on 123 Main Street. I know exactly where 123 Main Street is, right? Because you just told me the address of where you're at. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, anatomy is the same way. If I tell you that I have a problem with the anterior talofibular ligament, you're going to be like, what? Where's that at, right?
You lost me after anterior.
Exactly. So basically, that's where anatomy is at. Anatomy is only a roadmap for doctors to talk to each other, to be able to actually understand what this person is having. So if I tell somebody, hey, this person has an anterior talofibular ligament or an ATFL injury, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But for me to explain it to a patient, then I have to go into details, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where it comes in, a situation whereby the doctor have to be able to bring in the medical jargon down to the patient in a way that they understand it. Why I'm going there is because sports is not any different. Sports is the same thing. Sports injury is basically an injury of the musculoskeletal system. Mm-hmm. Musculoskeletal. So it's got muscles and it's got skeletal. So it's got bones and muscles, right? Yep. Well, that's not the only thing there is. There are ligaments, there are fascia, there are veins, there are arteries that feed this stuff. There are nerves that tell the muscles what to do. So you have a variety of different tissues that are actually doing things to that area. And if any one of these gets injured while you're trying to help the patient, you're causing more problems.
Right, for sure. So like you said, I mean, everything you've dealt with, feet and ankle, is sprained ankles probably one of the more common things you see, or is it more of like the, I'm trying to think of the best word, but the chronic issues that you see that people have?
Well, the thing is, most people don't really understand the foot, so you have to explain it again. So why don't I explain it a little bit, okay, since you don't understand what I'm talking about. The foot, whoever created the foot for us, says we can actually the foot would be a shock absorber and a propeller, okay?
Yep.
So we are going to be adapting to ground, whichever ground we walk on, whether it's outside in nature or flat surfaces or whatever it is, and also propelling off that ground, so we're actually moving ahead, okay, or stopping, or whatever we want to do. Now, for us to do that, just think about it. The thigh bone, is only one bone.
Yep.
Okay, whereas the leg bones are 2 bones. All right. Now, the foot bones are 26.
26. I knew it was a lot. I would not have guessed 26.
1/4 of your bones of the whole skeletal is in your feet.
That I knew it was high. I never knew it was that high.
You have also the thing is, your foot is made out of several sections. So there is the back section, there is the middle section, and then there is the front section. And also it's made out of inside and outside sections. So if you divide all that up, you end up with a variety of problems that can happen with it. Now, twisted ankles is one of them, but you are looking at possible, stress fractures to the metatarsals, stress fractures to the cuneiforms, which is the bones that are supporting the metatarsals, which is the bones that hold the toes. So you end up with a variety of issues. Now, also, you have to think about the ligaments that are holding everything together, and those ligaments can be either attenuated or torn or partially torn, or you have many things that can go wrong. So in medicine, what we do, we try to understand first the problem, and once we understand the problem, we then go on to try and treat what the problem is. Now, let's give you an example. Somebody comes into the doctor's office and they have a headache. The doctor looks at them and what is the doctor going to do? Is he going to give you just a couple of Tylenols and you go home? Or is he going to check your blood pressure to see maybe it's because of your high blood pressure? And or is he going to check your TMJ to make sure that you don't have a TMJ problem,
Yep.
And or is he going to check your vertebral bodies back in the cervical area, which is the neck area, and check and make sure that you don't have a stress situation going on with those muscles? So you can see there's many variety of problems that are happening just to get a headache. And also possible vascular issues, possible neurological issues. So you end up with a situation whereby a couple of pieces of Tylenol is not going to take care of it.
Yeah.
It may take care of it for right now, but is it really the problem that you just create? Is it really the thing that you want to treat? Yes or no? Sure. So most of the time, whenever we get an injury, the injury is only a symptom of the problem that can cause it.
Yep, okay? Definitely.
So what happens is, and I give that example to a lot of my patients. So let's say, you have your car, right? You drive your car down the road all the time. You don't think about it. And all of a sudden you have a blown up tire. Why? Because maybe there was a little bit of an alignment issue with the wheel, right? Well, if the wheel have been malaligned, you still continue to walk with the car, no problem. But then all of a sudden it blows up. Or it could also be a problem with the ball bearing that is holding the actual joint of the tire.
Yep.
If that goes wrong as well, what is going to happen? The whole tire is going to fly off, and then you're going to be without a tire. Well, the same thing with the foot. The foot actually accommodates so much of our body's weight against ground, against injury, against the gravity. It's unbelievable how much we actually can put on that foot, and the foot can actually hold us. But if the ligament is weak, if we have nutritional issues,
definitely,
if we have medical issues, if we have vascular issues, if we smoke, if we drink, if we do all these things, those are going to affect the chemistry of that tissue. And when you affect the chemistry of that tissue becomes bad. And that tissue, when it becomes bad, it cannot do its function.
Right.
So let's say a muscle gets injured, all right, on a sports person. He gets injured, the muscle, let's say, not the tendon, the muscle. Muscle tissue has a lot of blood, so it heals faster. But the tendon, have you ever taken a chicken leg and you just pull the thing on and it moves the thing about the chicken here? Well, the thing about that is that's the tendon. And if you look at it, it's white in color. Why is it white in color, not red?
Not much blood.
Not much blood. So because there is not much blood in there, what's going to happen is, how is it going to heal if it has to heal? It has to heal through a process called osmosis. So we're going back to basic science, which is basically...
Which is what a lot of us need that listen to this podcast. Exactly. Trust me. Yeah. We all need a basic science lesson here.
So what I'm trying to explain is there is a lot more intricacies into it. And usually you want to, as a doctor, I have to actually find out your problem.
You're like rooting through all of the possibilities to get to the bottom of it.
Exactly. So we're looking for the needle in the haystack.
Definitely.
Most of the time.
Because not all the time it's not going to be like, oh, I jumped in the air, I landed on the side of my foot, and I twist. It's, things like you said, deal with club foot and all these different, major, ailments that people deal with, and it's very rarely when you talk about something like clubfoot. I can't imagine that that's a one this is why it happened. It's got to be something, there's multiple reasons around it.
Most of the time we are dealing with syndromes, which means many different things that are happening that are causing the issue. And we need to kind of wean off, okay, this is not it, this is not it, this is not it, this is it.
Right.
And then we just deal with the problem that we're in.
Then you work on it from there. So getting back to the sporting world, have you ever dealt with any, or worked with, I shouldn't say dealt with, that sounds so negative. Have you ever worked with any high-level or high-performance athletes in your times traveling not only here in America but abroad?
Well, I have dealt with athletes abroad more than here. In the United States, because again we live in the boonies, we don't have
there's not many professional athletes out here,
but we do have a lot of young men who go on to become athletes, collegiate or some kind of
for sure. Like my brother played collegiate basketball. He spent a lot of time with you over the years.
Exactly. So I mean, that's just one patient. Now we have other patients around the area that are the same way. So that's the kind of people that we see in the office.
Sure. What would you say, like when you talk about like high performance athletes, what sports have you, obviously we don't, want to divulge people's names, but what kind of sporting, events have some of your clients participated in?
Most of the people that we see are basketball and soccer.
Okay.
Why is that? It's because of the repetitive traumatic situation that's happening with the stop and go,
Definitely.
and side-to-side motion that goes on with the structures. So the structure is going through a lot of stresses that are happening from these motions that are crucial to finish the game. So the brain is actually giving the order, hey, get to the ball, but it doesn't know what the automatic brain is doing by actually telling, okay, the peroneus longus tendon or the anterior tibial tendon, hey, you fire now, not later.
Exactly.
And if there is a mix-up as to which one fires first, just like we had a mix-up earlier.
With our technology mix-up.
Right. So if there is a little bit of tick there, and something happens before it needs to happen, then the whole skeletal system goes into array.
Right.
And that's the problem. That's when you get the injury. And very important that the patient or the sportsman actually gets their mindset that, hey, I want to have a game with no injuries. And once you have that mindset, you minimize your injuries, believe it or not, in my mind.
For sure.
Mind over matter kind of thing. But nevertheless, things happen, no matter what.
Definitely. So what would be, with your dealings with feet and ankle, is there a way for people to prevent sports injuries like that? I mean, I feel like sometimes I could think about it all I want, but at some point in the middle of my Y League basketball game, I'm going to land on someone's foot and that ankle's going all the way over. Is there like a preferred method that you as a medical professional can give to people out there that is it stretching? Is it, getting warmed up? Is it a nutritional thing? Like, I feel like there's so many different, opinions out there that it's hard to get one right.
There is many layers to this, and that's the thing. You have the nutritional aspect. You have the construct aspect, which means, is the construct good for sports?
For sure.
Okay. So again, some of us we're not the same. So everybody's different. I didn't go up to become an athlete because my construct is different than the next person.
Definitely.
And some people are different, and so we are all different. But nevertheless, we have a commonality, and that commonality is that we can train to become whatever we want to become. Now, in training, you have to be careful. So, if you understand your own anatomy as a person, then you can minimize your injuries. Okay. Now, if you don't understand it and you need help, that's when you go to the doctor. So that's why they say sometimes that it's a good idea for athletes to have a sports exam.
Yep.
And most people do that. Even young people in
physicals
school,
is a lot of the time they call
sports
now.
Physical.
Yep.
Just to make sure that they have and they are fit to actually be able to do what they need to do. And then the doctor can direct them as to where they can excel. So let's say some people, if I see them, I would say you'll do better in swimming.
Right.
Or some people will do better in basketball, or some people will do better in football, or whatever.
Right.
It depends on what I'm looking at. Nevertheless, what I'm looking at also is dictated by the structure.
Right.
So we cannot just look at the person and say, "Oh yeah,
you look like a football player. Go be
a
it.
Footballer. Go do a football." No. What we do is we actually do an exam. Do X-rays, do the whole thing, find out exactly what we're dealing with, what we want to do, and then we proceed.
Yeah, that's a great, because you wouldn't. I don't think I'm built to be like a gymnast. It'd be one of those things that maybe I missed my calling, maybe a long time ago if I would have, done the right research, but obviously not. Those days have long passed.